I'm on to my third startup now. Previously, I was doing strategy consulting, investment advisory, and regulatory advisory in the telecom, media, and technology space. I'm now starting a new company to develop a technology platform for mobile social networking. Along with that, I also sit on the board of a couple of startups, including one large one, 197, and I'm advising some new startups that are going through some incubation right now. I think the biggest change that's there is with every new startup, when you look back at your previous startups, you almost feel like, why didn't I know this stuff when I started the previous company? So you're always constantly learning with every new challenge, with every new problem you're trying to solve. And with that, you get this feeling of, if I had only known this 5 years ago when I started the last company, would have been great. But at the same time, I think with every new challenge, you really are looking at taking a fresh perspective at that challenge. And I would say probably the hardest part is just making that transition and knowing when to let go. You know, when you feel like you've taken a company or a startup to the stage where it can now fly on its own or go on its own, and you feel like you're ready to hand it off to someone else and then go do the next thing. That's probably the most difficult thing, is taking that hard decision to say, you know what, this is great, time to do the next thing. The thing that has worried me always in any company I've been involved with is the people problem. I would say, particularly in India, it's the hardest thing to get right, and particularly when you're looking for senior leadership or co-founders. The biggest challenge I'm facing today is actually finding the right technology team to put together for this new organization. And India in particular, because the mindset of being an entrepreneur and the startup culture is still pretty nascent, a lot of people still prefer to take traditional paths. They have jobs with large MNCs, they're getting paid well, they're comfortable, they have a lot of parental pressure, and you really have to look hard and wide to find not only the right person with the right expertise and skills, but that also matches the right timing and also matches the right mindset. And whether it's hiring senior level people or it's even hiring junior people who are going to be part of the team and scaling up an organization, the most difficult thing is to go from, say, 10 to 20 and then from 20 to 40. Once you're 100 people, going 100 plus obviously gets a little bit easier, but it's those early steps in scaling and solving the people problem, which I think is the most difficult problem to address. Thing about the opportunity, or shall I say, the good fortune that I have to be able to work with a lot of different startups and different spaces, is that I do constantly get to keep learning from other entrepreneurs, whether they're first-time entrepreneurs or they're seasoned ones. And the passion with which they approach their problems is something that I'm always impressed by, and that's something which I think I have to constantly admire and keep learning from. The other thing is, even if, and I've been doing this for almost 15 years now, you always find new ways to approach business models. So the one thing that I think I always try and keep in mind is it's great to continue to share with people you trust and with other entrepreneurs, because you may come at a particular problem from a specific perspective, but if there are other entrepreneurs who are good, who you can trust, even if they're first-time entrepreneurs, they will always be able to give you a slightly different perspective, a slightly different view, and that's great for helping you to become more mature and for you to build your business model. Even if, like I said, they're junior to you or they're first-time entrepreneurs, it's always great to share. The startup ecosystem, if there's one thing, and there's probably lots of things that we can learn from and improve, but I guess the one thing that I would like to change is sort of the social acceptance of the startup culture. Even if I think about my parents, because they grew up in India and they're from a conservative background, while I've done this now a couple of times, but every time I sort of quit a company to go do something else, they still sort of ask the question, why are you doing it all over again? Why not just stick on with what you have and be comfortable and, grow and things like that. And the same thing applies to even younger entrepreneurs, and particularly guys who are coming straight out of college or straight out of a master's program. There's a lot of societal pressure to go into a safe, secure, comfortable kind of job. And I think if we can, over time, really get the social acceptance for being an entrepreneur or being part of the entrepreneur environment or being part of the startup culture that will go a long way in getting a lot more innovation and a lot more people involved in this type of environment. So I would say the first thing to focus on is don't give up. If you are truly passionate, about what you're doing. If you are truly addressing a problem that exists and you've got an innovative solution to do that, and if you really do believe that you're the right person to make this happen, there's going to be plenty of days, and I'm going through a lot of those days right now myself, where you feel like, I shouldn't do this, the problem is too hard, there aren't enough people supporting, etc., etc. But you've really got to persevere. It's for those of you who work out, the first 3 months of working out are very difficult because you're just getting used to it, and then it starts getting easier and easier as you get accustomed to it. The same thing is true with a startup. It takes a long time to get over that first set of hurdles. You will always have hurdles in your life, but the first set are the hardest. The second thing is speak to as many different people as you can. And I remember in the first couple of things that I tried to do, I was very secretive about my ideas. I didn't want to discuss with a lot of people. But what you learn over a period of time is it's not just the idea, and it's very cliche. It's not just the idea, it's the people who are trying to do the idea. And frankly, the more people you speak to, the more inputs you get, the more mature you get about thinking through the idea, and the better you're able to handle tricky questions, because someone or another will ask you that tricky question. And I say the third thing is, give yourself a timeline which is sufficient within which to do whatever you're trying to do, and be disciplined about that. If you get to the end of that timeline, then you may have to make a difficult call and say, you know what, this is not working, I need to go try to do something else. Or I've made sufficient progress that I want to give it another 6 months or another 12 months. But you've got to be very disciplined about that time, because things can drag on for a very long time if you don't put yourself into that discipline mode. So, my previous company was all about professional services, and all of our professional services staff was client-facing. So it was very difficult because you need to make sure you find people who are bright but can also communicate well. And when we started, we didn't have a brand name in India. Nobody knew us. Very few people knew me. So it was very difficult to get the first set of people on board. And I think the thing that you learn is you've got to figure out who's the right person for that time. And also the way investors will make a bet on entrepreneurs in terms of their future capabilities, you've got to make a bet on employees in terms of their future capabilities as well. So it may not be the best person on day one, but if they've got the right growth trajectory and you can train them and build them, then it's better to get that person than to get someone who's overqualified and overpay them, because they won't have that same entrepreneurial desire and ability to grow and ability to really excel. That's someone who's younger, brighter, fresher, and more hungry. So it's about the right person at the right time, and then as you grow, then you can also modify the profiles of people you're looking for as well.